Hello. Today I'm going to be talking about socialism and why the United States should adopt it as an economic and political policy. I'm going to be going over a brief history of what it is, how it's kind of been around in the world, and even some examples of, how socialism currently exists in the United States, believe it or not. From there, I'm going to go into, how and why we should go to that sort of system as a country. So to start out, I know that there's a few different types of socialism. There's democratic socialism, communism, things like that. But just for the sake of this speech, I'm going to be focusing on just the blanket term of socialism. Now, according to the Socialist Party website, socialism is defined as and I'm quoting this, a political and economic theory of social organization that advocates that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned and regulated by a community as a whole. Central to the meaning of socialism is common ownership. This means that the resources of the world being owned in common by the entire global population. So in plain English, basically what that means is if you have a business, a company, whatever, the people have a right to own that. They need to be able to control their own wages, their working conditions, things like that. That way, it's taking power from the wealthy 1%, the top guys, and making sure that everyone has an equal say in all of this. Now, socialism kind of got its start during the French Revolution. Socialism science was actually coined by Karl Marx right around that same time when he came out with his Communist Manifesto. And historically, it's been commonly seen in companies like that are getting out of war, rebuilding. You could see that in Russia after the World Wars and the various revolutions that they went through. You could see it in the Koreas after the Korean War. In fact, it's still very prevalent in North Korea. A lot of the socialism parties, although, like I said, that's more communism, so we're going to stay away from that. And even in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, I mean, they've in order to kind of get out of that, they've adopted those policies in order to make sure that everyone's being taken care of. It's not just the wealthy top percent; it's everyone in the country's being taken care of. Now, as far as in the U.S. Socialism kind of got its start in the 1800s. That's when the Socialist Party started, and you have your various labor movements and things like that. It hasn't really gained a whole lot of traction because obviously the main political parties that we go with are going to be your Democrats and Republicans. However, the United States as a whole actually has a lot of socialist programs. Take for example the Postal Service. That's something that everyone pays into, everyone has access to use, and that sort of thing. So that's socialism in action right there. The school systems, so K through 12, everyone has the right to an education in this country, which is great, with the exception of higher education, but I'm going to get to that in a few minutes. Now, again, so everyone pays into that with their taxes and everything like that. The government pays school districts, teachers, that sort of thing, and then your children can go to school and get educated, which is great, because we don't want an uneducated society. And another way that we're socialist is with our highway and infrastructure system. So you don't necessarily have to pay to use a highway. I mean, unless you're like using a toll road, but you can just go out, drive on the streets, go over bridges, things like that, and that's all through the government. That's something that we all technically own. Now, the most recent use of socialism would have been Bernie Sanders in this last election. He was arguing for free healthcare, free education, and that sort of thing. And the big reason being is that in this society, uh, we currently have it to where the top 1% controls everything. They're the ones that are making the most money, that sort of thing, where you have their workers that are struggling. A good example of this would be like McDonald's and Walmart, where very, very profitable companies. They're known worldwide. However, they're not paying their employees a decent minimum wage. And what this can kind of cause is, I mean, they've even, flat out told their employees, like, yeah, we're going to keep paying you this, but you can still, this is how you get food stamps and things like that. So we need to have a push through the government and our economic systems to force, those top organizations to be able to treat their employees fairly. And by doing, or in order to accomplish that, that would be giving those workers the power over their own, career choices and wages and things like that. Now, that's going to be a big thing that's going to be very helpful with socialism in the US. It's the elimination of the class system. The way that it is right now is the, top percent of the country, the millionaires, billionaires, things like that, they have more of the wealth than the rest of us, your average blue collar workers, families, things like that. And that creates a lot of unfairness, just because, there's so many things that they're not able to do. They have to work longer hours, possibly work more jobs. It's a lot harder for people to go through school, that sort of thing. So by the United States going towards the socialist system, there's a lot of different things that we can do with this. The first being healthcare. I brought that up briefly earlier, but healthcare costs have skyrocketed, and I don't think that anyone would really want to be in a situation to where, you know, say you have cancer or some other disease or something that can be treated, but you can't get that treatment because you don't have the money to pay for it. That, I mean, not only is it, you know, uh, we can fund that through socialism, but it's also a moral argument. I mean, do you really want your citizens to, be sick and dying just because they can't afford the medical bill? Where you have other people, that make more money, that can pay more into the system, that can use those funds to pay for those sick people. The other thing, and it's a similar argument with education. Like I mentioned earlier, we're already kind of a socialist society because we offer the K through 12 education. Now, we need to get to the point where we can do that with college education as well. Just because by doing so, that's going to give us a better platform to play, with the rest of the world. We're going to have more educated scientists, doctors, what have you, through those higher education. And it's very simple to fund. You just charge the 1% or the top percentage more, so then everyone gets that education. You don't have to worry about, oh, I may be able to afford college, but I'm not going to be able to afford the books, or I may not even be able to go to college, so now I'm going to be stuck in a dead-end job forever. All very important stuff. The last thing that can, kind of contribute to this as well is going to be the minimum wage. And I touched on this briefly earlier when I was talking about Walmart and, McDonald's and things like that. Minimum wage, it's very difficult to live off of that, and no one should have to go through that. I mean, if that's the best job that they can get, they still need to be able, to get to work, pay rent, keep the lights on. If they have kids, they need to provide for them. So corporations and the government need to ensure that, they're being paid an amount that is able to accommodate that stuff. And as of right now, it's not something that we have in place. Although there are, like the Fight for 15 and organizations like that that are striving for that. What we really need is to have the government mandate all of this just across the board in order to raise people out of that poverty level. So the biggest thing that we can do in order to kind of change this is, go out and vote. If this is stuff that you agree with, you need to make sure that your voice is heard. And in this country, the best way to do so is getting out there, voting for the politicians and the policies that you think will allow this type of agenda to go forward. So, thank you.